Hi everyone, I hope you're having a good time. My name is Danyel Cavazos. I am a grad student in Randy Hewlett's lab. I'm in my 4th year and my field is atomic and molecular optics and I do experiments. So right now I'm going to give you a tour of my lab. I hope you like it. So let's go. So this is the main area. This is where we usually have meetings. And that's our blackboard. Those are our tools. And that's the main area where we actually work when we need to do some circuit. So we come here and we solder something, or we just work on the cabling. And whenever we need some components, we just come over here and they are all here, so I can just grab whatever I want. And for example, if I need a circuit, I can just come here and grab it like this. So we usually spend some time here preparing whatever devices we need for our experiments, and then whenever we have them ready, we go to the lab zone. So I'm going to first show you the experiment on which I work. This is a cold atoms lab. So that means we study what happens to metals when we cool them down to really low temperatures, very close to absolute zero, and it's so cold that it's not even a solid anymore. It turns into a different state of matter, and that state is so fragile that we cannot really keep it in just in air. So we have to put it inside a vacuum chamber. So it's over there. And the material we work with is lithium. So I have a little bit here. So this is a chunk of lithium. This one is a little bit dirty. The one we use for the experiments is a little bit cleaner. And what we do is that we put it inside an oven, which looks like this. So this is a container where we put chunks of lithium, and then this goes in here. And we heat it up to about 500 degrees Celsius and it becomes vaporized. And then we use some laser cooling techniques to bring the temperature of that metal down to just a few nanokelvins, about absolute zero. So as you can see, the experiments we do are a little bit complicated. We need a lot of light and other devices to make the experiment work. So I can show you how it looks like up close. So over there, that's the vacuum chamber, the thing that looks metallic, and all around that there are a lot of mirrors, and we use all of those to send all the lasers into the chamber. So you can see that there are a lot of them all over the table. These are some of the electronics that we use to control the system. So you can see that there are a lot of wires all over the place. So it gets a little bit complicated sometimes. And we use lasers with different colors. For example, this over here is a UV laser. So that means it will output light that is not really visible, because we can only see between, say, 400 and 700 nanometers. But I can put a paper in front of it, and then it will scatter light that is blue. So you can see it over here. So this is a UV laser. And over here we have some other lasers. This one we made them ourselves. For example, this one is a red diode laser, and you can see that if I put the card right in front of it, it's actually red. And over here you can see all of the mirrors and all the other elements that we use to prepare the light in just the right state. We change the intensity of the light, the polarization, the color of the light, and by doing so we tune it just right so that when it hits the atoms, then it will do exactly what we want. And you can see, for example, this is a system that we use to direct an IR laser, and over here we have a green laser So let me show it to you. So for example, if I put a card over here, it will look green. And we take this light and we couple it into optical fibers over there, and we send them through them to the experiment, and that's where we align all of the lasers. So for example, I can show you over here, the optical fibers come here and then they get attached over there, and then we can send all of those lasers into the chamber. So for example, here, over there, you can see a window in the chamber, and for example, we send lasers through it, and when the laser hits the atoms, then it will lower the temperature of them. So I can show you some of the experiments that we do here. So that's the one I work in, but there are others too, and they look kind of similar. This is our workspace. Those are the computers that we use to control the machines. For example, you can see this panel over here. That's where we wire a lot of the controls. And if I go around here, you will be able to see another vacuum chamber, which is very similar to the one I showed you before. Let me see if you can see it. So it's very similar. So you can see it's made of steel, and there's something wrapped in aluminum, and that's where the lithium goes. And then we have a lot of mirrors and other optical components to send the lasers into the chamber. So this is another experiment, and I can show you a third one. They all look very similar, but we do very different kinds of physics. For example, I work with lithium-6, so that's the fermionic isotope of lithium. So that means it behaves more like electrons. But here, for example, they work with lithium-7, which is the more, let's say, normal isotope of lithium, and that's a bosonic one. So that means that it has very different properties, and we study different kinds of things. For example, in this machine, we can study solitons with those atoms. So I can show you the optical table over here. Let me see. So you can see that there are a lot of elements, and we need to control every single one of them to make the experiment work. Now that we did the tour, I'm going to make a very quick demonstration for you about atomic spectra. As you will see, this demonstration is not only very beautiful just by looking at it, but it is also very important for atomic physics. People like Niels Bohr used the results of these experiments to figure out the fundamentals of quantum mechanics more than a century ago. So here I have a power source, and there are two electrodes over here, and I have a few of these charge tubes. So they are filled with some gas. For example, this one is filled with helium, and the one over here is filled with hydrogen. So whenever I turn on the power, some current is going to be flowing through the gas and heating it up until it excites the atoms inside it, and they will emit exactly with the light that corresponds to the atomic levels. So for this, I'm going to turn off the light, and you can see when I turn it on that it shines with a very particular color. This is hydrogen. And for example, if I use this diffraction grating, I can use it to split the colors of the light coming out of this tube. And you can see that there are some very particular lines. So this is a reflection of the atomic levels of hydrogen. So for example, I'm going to turn it off. And if I change this discharge tube, for example, this is hydrogen, but let's see what happens when I put helium here. So because it's a different species, it's gonna have a different spectrum. So for example, if I turn it on, you can see that it has a completely different color. And if I use the diffraction grating, you can see that the lines that are coming out of it are also very different. So let's see, for example, if instead of helium, I use something else like neon, which is another noble gas. I think you have probably seen something like this before, especially on the street. So whenever I turn this one on, it's gonna have a completely different color. This one looks very bright and very red. And when I use the diffraction grating, you can see that whatever is coming out is much more complicated, because neon is an atom that is much larger than hydrogen or helium. So for example, I have another one over here. So if instead of neon we use mercury, so I'm going to put it over here, and then I'm going to turn it on too. So this one also has a completely different color, and whenever I use the diffraction grating, you can see that the colors integrating this light are very different. So basically this is like a barcode, and by looking at it I can actually know what's the element inside these tubes. So we use something very similar in my experiment. So you were able to see the atomic levels of these species. I work with lithium, and we use the same lithium has some colors that are very particular to those atoms, and those are the colors of the light that we use in the lasers in our system.